Wealth Nation, we know many of you love the topic of real estate, and that's why we wanted to bring our new friend Ben Wilson to the channel, because he currently owns and manages over $130 million in real estate assets. He is the founder and owner of 4 core companies: Team Wilson Real Estate Partners, which represents over $1 billion of gross sales; Wilsonberry Title and Escrow; 415 Property Investment Group; and B Coaching and Consulting Firm. Ben has such a phenomenal spirit, and the minute that Darius and I met him, we knew immediately that we needed to bring him to the channel so that you all can continue to learn from Ben just as we have. Ben, welcome to the Wealth Nation channel. We are so thrilled to have you. Ever since the first moment we met last week, we just knew that we were going to be fast friends, and we have been looking forward to Tuesday at 10:30 with you, Ben. So welcome to the channel.
Oh, thank you so much. I likewise, our conversation that we had the first time we ever spoke, it was magnetic, it was energetic, and it was alive, and that feels good. That feels really good. So thank you for having me.
Awesome. Now, Ben, you're from Kentucky, correct?
I am.
So I for my anniversary last year, I went to Kentucky for the Bourbon Trail. Are you a bourbon fan?
I am. I haven't always been, but I definitely am. And it's fun when we hear, like, a lot of people when they find out that I'm from Kentucky, right? They immediately go into, so are you a bourbon fan? Do you like that? And here's what's funny. I didn't start drinking bourbon until my mid-30s.
Wow. Good for you.
I think it saved me, because had I started when I was younger, I might not be on this podcast.
There we go.
I might not be talking to you. But I didn't start drinking until my mid-30s. So for me, I think everyone has a history. Everybody has a story, right? And part of my story, that's a beautiful part of my story, but also a painful part of my story, is that my father was an alcoholic, right? Mm-hmm. And a lot of people have this. I'm not the only one that's out there by any stretch of the imagination. And I had a lot of unbelievable experiences with my dad, but I had a lot of just travesties. Yep. And so I think that when you have beautiful parents, good or bad, they can teach you good or bad things, right? Mm-hmm. And one of the things it taught me, because I went to school and my goal was to go to school and play sports and do all that. And so I was just like, I'm going to be the opposite. And so I actually am one of those guys who went to school and didn't have 1 ounce of alcohol the entire time I was in college.
Good for you. Amazing.
And it wasn't like I'm a believer and I was brought up in church, and I was brought up, you don't drink, you don't do that kind of stuff, right? But that was never my reason. My reason is I don't want to be like that.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so I didn't. And so when I got out of school and I started working, I got promoted pretty fast, right? And the first meeting I had was in Knoxville, Tennessee. And I went there, and I'm 23 years old at the time. And I'm with a bunch of guys that are 40 and 50. They're all general managers in the organization and the company that we're at. And I'm the youngest guy there by far. I don't drink or anything. And so everyone's there doing what they do at a GM meeting after hours, right? They're having a cocktail, right? And they're having a bunch of great conversations. Well, I wanted to be in the conversation, but I felt like I wasn't going to get in the conversation unless I had a cocktail. And so I went up there and I talked to the bar, kind of snuck away, and I talked to the bartender. And long story short is I didn't want any of the alcoholic drinks that were there as far as cocktails and liquors and spirits. But I ended up landing on something that was like disgusting to me at the moment. And it's this thing, it's called wine. But I landed on this wine, and I drank wine almost exclusively until my mid-30s. And then I got introduced to bourbon. And then, just like any great group of people and great community, when you get attached to something and they appreciate you, what do? They buy you this stuff.
Buy you more.
And so I went from never having a full bottle of whiskey or bourbon in my house to it started off as a little corner of a closet, and now it's an entire room. And it's a whole tasting center. And it's like, if people come over, they don't even want to talk to me. They just want to go in the room, right? So
that is
do I know
so
a little
amazing.
bit about bourbon now? Unfortunately and fortunately, yes, I do.
Well, yeah, it's so funny when we were looking at your bio, we're like, Kentucky, oh my gosh, bourbon, like, and that's something that Darius has absolutely loved. So one thing that I want to talk about with the story that you just mentioned is your why, right? You were talking about why you weren't drinking, right? You were like, I wasn't trying to be in the in crowd. I just didn't want to look like that. right?
That's right.
Or have that experience. And so I definitely think that the why is going to be something that kind of echoes throughout our conversation from just what we've talked about together collectively and just how we've all come to where we are, right?
Yes.
So how did you stumble upon real estate? And also with that, how does one such as yourself be blessed beyond belief to be able to grow this amazing portfolio, to be able to have over $130 million of assets in real estate? Like what? Let's talk about that, Ben.
Or was it even a stumble, or was it intentional?
Yeah.
It was far from intentional. It was far from intentional. It was definitely a stumble. But as I've looked back, as I've reflected, if you would have asked me this question 15 years ago, I would have said I wanted to make a whole lot of money. I wanted to take care of my family, and I wanted to provide wealth and go on great vacations, and I wanted to just provide this beautiful lifestyle to my family. That would have been my answer, and I was willing to do whatever it took, and this was a beautiful vehicle to do it, right? Mm-hmm. When I go back and I think about the people who influenced me and impacted me early, I was influenced and impacted to become a doctor, an engineer in the healthcare, or go work at a big company like Ford or the post office, but to find security and safety in my life. Like I was literally programmed for that. I have one side of my family that are all professionals and they have beautiful careers and they were pharmacists and doctors and engineers. And then the other side of my family, they worked their butts off, right? And they showed up every day and they clocked in and they clocked out and they created a beautiful lifestyle. Both ways were beautiful to me, but none of them ever took chances. I never saw any side of my family ever take chances. Mm-hmm. And so I had in high school and then coming out into college, most of my life was kind of planned out already. Like it was dialed in the things that I was going to do. And then I go to college and the things that were all planned out, God said, hey, I got you. And I'm going to switch it all up. And I'm doing a 180 pivot on you. And I'm going to take away everything that you knew that was comfortable, everything that you knew that you were good at. And I'm going to take it all away. And I'm going to force you to go find me. That's ultimately what happened. I'm going to force you to go find me. And what he meant by that, what I know now, like he said, you've got to depend on me. And if you do that, there's some cool stuff that's going to happen along the way. There's some cool things that are going to happen in your life. So back to the real estate question, my grandfather would always tell me to buy real estate, but he only owned one house. He bought it 2 years after he got married, right? He paid $19,000. And whenever he passed away, that was the same house that he still lived in. But he told me to do that, right? And then my dad loved to fish in a little fishing hole. I call it a fishing hole, but it was like a private lake, but it was a gated community. And he said, this is my dream. I would just love to live here. And I would love to, and this was all growing up, right? But, I can't afford it. So I have to go with my friend Gary, and my friend Gary, whenever he can go, I'm going to go with him because he can get us in and out of the gates, right?
Gotta love Gary.
And so I started off, I finished up college, I went to work. I started making a little bit of money. I was 22, getting ready to turn 23. I started making a little bit of money. And I wanted to show my dad honor, not my real father, but my stepfather. And I wanted to show him honor, and I wanted to buy him property so he didn't have to wait on Gary to go fishing, right?
I love that.
And so I went to my mom. This is a true story as far as how I got into real estate, right?
Okay.
And I went to my mom and I said, hey, I've got some money set aside here and I want to do something really nice and take care of myself, right? And make an investment into myself because I've never had money before. And I want to do something for my father, right? And so she says, well, if you're going to spend, you got a little bit of money. She goes, you got to go buy really nice furniture. Okay.
All right.
So I went out. By the way, I still have that furniture. It's in our guest bedroom that my parents stay in every time they come to our house. It's really nice Kincaid furniture, solid cherry. It's beautiful, right? But that was my mom's perspective of making a good, solid investment. And so then my perspective was I was going to go buy a piece of real estate, not because of real estate, but because my dad could go there fish, right? And so I went there and I bought this. This is my very first piece of real estate. I said, Dad, I want to do this. I told him about it. And I said, I want you just to go find it. And so he went on, like back in the day, you actually opened up a newspaper to look for property. So he opened up a newspaper and he found an ad and it says, "Hey, lot in Doe Valley," which is where it was at. And they were asking, I don't remember because I didn't actually see it. I think it was like $5,000 or $6,000, one or the other. And they were asking for this lot. And all it was to me was a ditch lot, meaning you can't build on it. And I was just going to buy it so he could get in and out of the gates. I was going to basically spend $5,000 or $6,000 so he could get in and out of the gates. Right?
Oh, amazing.
And so he goes in. I said, offer him $2,500 cash. We'll close in 7 days. Now, keep in mind, I don't know nothing about real estate. Like nothing. I said, offer him $2,500 cash, and I'll sell, and we'll close on it in 7 days. So he offered him $2,500. They immediately accepted. I said, well, we should offer him $2,000. Right?
It was too high. It was too high.
So we offered him $2,500. We go there. I'm sitting at the closing table, and we're sitting there, and they're sitting there, right? The wife. And I was like, hey, so tell me a little bit about this lot. She goes, you haven't seen the lot? And I was like, well, no, like it's a ditch lot. Like, I don't need to see a ditch lot. I just want to get my dad. And I told her the story. She goes, oh my gosh, I'm so glad that you're buying this piece of property. And I was like, why is that? And she goes, because I love the story. My husband passed away. My previous husband passed away. We were going to build our dream home on this lot. Oh, stop it. We were going to build our dream home on this lot. And I was like, oh, what? Dream home? I thought it was a ditch lot. My dad told me this was a ditch lot. And I looked over at him. He goes, well, I thought it was a ditch lot. Like it was $2,500, right? He says, no, honey, this is right on the water. She goes, we put it out there because I need to sell it fast because me and my new husband are moving to Germany and we wanted to liquidate everything as quickly as possible. And the first person that made us an offer, cash, we were going to take it. And she goes, oh, by the way, it also has a golf membership that's attached to it at the country club.
Wow.
Come on.
This is in podunk nowhere, so it's still not like worth hundreds of thousands. But this was my first investment, my first piece of real estate, right? I bought it for someone else, right? Because my parents couldn't afford it or didn't want to afford it. Probably a better way to put it. Mm. Before I even got to look at the lot, I already had the golf membership sold for $3,000.
Wow.
So it covered all my closing cost and it covered the cost. So now I'm in this property at zero, a base of zero. We go and drive up, beautiful lot, right on the water. I mean, gorgeous. I kept it for years and then I actually gave it to my dad and then he used it. He ended up selling it to buy and made a ton of money on it to buy him and my mom a condo in that same gated community.
Oh, amazing.
That was my first piece of real estate, right? So fast forward, I think I shared with you all about framework, right? Mm-hmm. And how important your community is. And I told you a little bit about something I call my field of dreams, right? Because I want to win. Garrett, a good friend of ours, right, talks about winning the game first and then playing it. Mm-hmm. Yep. So I took that and I created something I call my field of dreams of how to win the game, right? And part of that is who I am becomes what I attract, becomes my community, right?
Yes.
And so when you asked me how I got into real estate, it was because all the people in my community needed me to be in it. Mm. That's the true answer.
Wow.
That's so powerful.
That's the true answer. It was what my wife and my son, if you want to go deep with this, we can go as deep as you want, but my wife and my son at the time, he was just born. They needed more of daddy and their husband. And I was in a job where I truly worked 80 or 90 hours a week happily. Like I was not miserable. I was happy. We did very well financially. I worked for a big company and I was very happy working all the time because I was good at it. Mm. And my wife was like, look, like we got kids and we're going to have more kids and you're not stopping. You've created this juggernaut. You're not stopping. And so it was a perfect opportunity. A company was bought, or our position in the company was bought by a huge company called Berkshire Hathaway. Yep. And so I was in a position to get a beautiful little windfall. And when all the people said, hey, we want to invest with you, we want to go down, it was a beautiful opportunity for me to go in. I was actually an owner in a real estate company before I even had a real estate license.
Amazing.
Wow.
And so my community, back to what I was saying, is my community ultimately needed me and wanted me to go down that road. And so it chose me. I did not choose it. But there were a lot of foundational things that led me there.
100%.
Absolutely. Now, when you talk about your community needed you to do that, there's a lot of times where people feel like they have a calling to do certain things, but there's they're not clear on what they're actually hearing. How were you able to identify that your community needed you to make these particular moves in your life?
Probably started when my wife was like, hey, like, I'm not feeling you.
That'll do it.
Yeah.
My bags are probably all but halfway packed. So that starts, right? That's a part of your community needing you, right?
Yeah.
And so a portion of me going into real estate was freeing up flexibility towards time, right? That was part of it. And not that I had a lot of extra time. I still put in 70, 80 hours a week. I just went from sleeping, 6 hours to sleeping 2 and 3. That was the only difference. But now I had flexibility, whereas previously my company owned me. And
Yes.
Got it.
right now I was able, when my son had something going on or when my wife needed me, a few years later, my wife ends up getting a terrible disease.
Oh my.
She needed me to be there. And had I not been in the position that I was in and that we chose to go down, I would have never had the flexibility. A lot of people go into real estate and whether it's as an investor or a realtor or whatever, they go into real estate thinking that they're going to have all this extra time.
Yes.
I will say it's given me a lot of flexibility, but I've still worked 70, 80 hours a week. I promise you.
Yeah.
And you've got to be good at anything.
Absolutely. Now, with your real estate journey, at what point did you recognize like, okay, this is something that I can sink my teeth into, and this is something that can provide for my family?
That was pretty early because keep in mind the company that I worked for was in the housing industry.
Exactly.
The company that I worked for was in the housing industry, and I'd had a lot of success there, and so I'd already been investing into real estate at that point. So it was pretty early on. I realized it was going to create a lot of cash for me. So I understood the concept of cash creation.
Perfect.
Right. But what I didn't understand early on was the value of cash flow. And I know that that's something that's heavy with you guys.
Yes.
I was just having a conversation earlier today. Somebody's like, hey, I want to live my lifestyle and I want to get to where I can speak on stage and do all this stuff. And I was like, bruh, like you got $100,000. Your focus should not be on cash flow. Your focus should be on cash creation.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Because the cash creation gives you the opportunity to create cash flow.
There you go.
Right? And so for me, it was very early on. Plus I also lost $90,000 the first year I was in. 1 month. I lost $90,000 in the stock market because I thought I was going to be a day trader. So I realized that was not going to be my vehicle.
You're like, yeah, no. But you know what? That was necessary, right? Because we say those things, right? Is like that was our tuition. That 90 grand, that was your tuition to know, like, okay, this I'm going to go over here. Because we've all had those losses, right? Where it allowed us to create or have that cash creation, change that mentality of thinking like, what exactly is it that we should be doing and what's calling us?
Right.
That's so true.
Now, when you started doing real estate full time, tell me how your understanding of real estate improved along with your personal growth.
Yeah, it was definitely my understanding of real estate led the charge, and then my personal growth followed. Right.
Okay.
Real estate, for whatever reason, real estate always made sense to me. I believed in it, and I never knew how to sell anything. My degree, my background is in healthcare, right? And what healthcare taught me is to care about other people. And the more I valued other people, the more I got to know other people, the more curious I became about other people, the more they trusted me with their care. And so I never sold anything before in my life. And so when I went into an industry that was sales driven, the only thing I knew was to care and value other people. And when they believed me, right, and I exchanged that back and forth with them, they just did what I asked them to do. They just followed the lead. They just trusted me, right? They say that, if people know you and like you, they'll buy from you, right? Yeah. But if people trust you, right, they'll do anything for you.
Yep.
And with you. And for whatever reason, that was early for me to be able to create that passion and exchange that passion, because I saw what it did for my dad when it lit his face up, right? And I wanted that feeling. That was like the greatest dopamine hit ever. I've never done a drug in my life, but if there was a drug for me, it was that feeling of how someone reacted to something valuable given to them in their life that they knew that they didn't deserve, but they knew they also were being given a gift. And I was like, I want more of that, right? Like that just ate me up.
You know what? That's such a beautiful perspective, because, and refreshing, because what we've all ever heard was, right, this is a cash cow. This is going to make me money. It's all been about ego driven, me, what real estate is going to do for me. And this is the first time in a minute that I've actually heard such a beautiful illustration of like what real estate can do for a family when you have the ability to support families in that way, in that capacity, when you can show up in a different capacity and be like, what gift can I provide? What legacy am I helping with your family? Like, what seeds am I planting?
Yes.
So thank you for sharing that, because what I've seen in my own journey in investing in real estate, whether it be single family, multifamily, whatever it is you do have to go back to that human element. This is all about connecting with humans, providing shelter for their families, for themselves, whatever it is. And if you're missing that human element, real estate, for me, from my perspective, can be a burden, can be maybe not the right capacity for individuals if you really don't appreciate that beautiful human element of just being able to provide shelter to another family.
When you think about this, it makes me think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Right?
That's exactly what I was thinking, right?
And nowhere on Maslow's hierarchy of needs is to be rich.
You're right.
Like how does it start? The foundation is the physiological needs that we have: air and
food, water, shelter.
Food, water, shelter, right? And then it goes into what? Safety.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then what does it go into? Love and belonging.
Connection.
Right? That's what, and you go in and then you create what? Confidence, right?
Mm-hmm. And then self-actualization.
Yes. And then the final is like, oh my gosh, this is who I am.
Yep.
This is who I need to be. This is who I desire to be. And then if you're fearless, you ask the final question, who's God really want me to be? Right. And that walks through, but nowhere in the hierarchy of needs, right, that was laid out for us, does it say I needed to be rich?
Right.
It just doesn't. And so you drive towards those things that are very natural, by the way. It's unnatural to think the way that so many of us think nowadays. We go, hey, if I create a lot of wealth, or if I have a lot of assets, or if I have a lot of protection in my life, right, then I can go do things for other people and create value in other people. It's the flip opposite. Go do things and create value for other people, and all that other stuff will follow.
Yes. Yeah. That couldn't be that's spot on. It's every time that I know for me, I've driven with my ego first instead of spirit. It's always been a disaster. Every time.
Well,
right?
It's supposed to be.
Yeah, right. Because I'm not in service, right? So I always recognize it. You always have to lead with value, and like you said, everything else will follow. It just comes. That's just the law.
Yeah, life be lifing.
Life be lifing. For real.
Life be lifing. I like that. I like that.
Now, our accountant, or accountants in general really love real estate for its tax advantages. And I think with that, we can lose sense of the relationships that we're building by acquiring an asset like real estate. When you have a conversation with your accountant, or when we have a conversation with our accountant versus how you're using this as a way to be an extension of your purpose and who you are, what is it that people should understand when they're just using this as a tool instead of an opportunity to connect?
Well, I think tools are important. I think it's one thing. It's important to understand that tools are important as long as you're building something.
Mm.
So when you go into, you probably know where I'm going with this, right?
Yeah.
When you go into living life, if you know what you're building, then you use the tool appropriately. Most people start once again with going, I want to collect a bunch of tools, right? And then I'll figure out what I'm going to build later. So if you have a bunch of tools on how to frame a house, but then what your desire, what your why, or what your gifts to the world are to be an electrician, you're not going to go very far, right? And so when you realize that real estate or money as a whole, right, resources as a whole, Bitcoin, whatever you want to talk about, right, life insurance, all of these things are beautiful tools. And I've only found a few tools that maximize our exposure to our greatest expense at the highest level, or benefit us to our exposure to our greatest expense at the highest level. By the way, the greatest expense that we're going to have is taxes, right? Right? It just is. If you make any money or do anything positive in life, it's going to be your greatest expense. So how do I become a great carpenter and a great tool user to minimize that, so that way I can ultimately get to what the end result is that I have for my life? And all of us have a different end result, right? Or a different desire. But for me, how I want to walk away, what my desired legacy, which I don't get to choose, is going to be different than your all's. I look at real estate or anything, like for you guys, y'all are in the insurance world, but I look at it as a tool. And then for me, I have to then run that tool through a filter, right, of how I want to utilize that tool to get me to the end result that I desire. But if you don't know your end result, right, if you don't start with the end in mind, Simon Sinek has a great book, Start With Why, right?
Yeah.
Fantastic book, right? But start not just with why, but what, right? What is it that you're pursuing?
Yeah.
And so being able to utilize that as a tool will then create an opportunity for you to then educate yourself, right? When you look at really what we're looking for and what people desire, like with your podcast, what do people desire? 3 E's, right?
I love that.
3 E's, right? They want to be educated. Number one, always will be.
Yes.
They want to be entertained a little bit, right? And I just heard this from a friend of mine, right? And then they want to be encouraged.
Yes. I love that.
Right. So now we can do the same thing, right? I look at real estate. Real estate has to bring me energy. I don't invest into anything. I have a filter that I run things through. I don't invest in anything that truly doesn't bring me energy. I've walked away from millions of dollars, verified millions of dollars, because it was sucking energy away from me rather than giving me energy. And everyone's like, you're an idiot. Well, I'm only an idiot if my end game is to be a cash creator, right? That was just a vehicle to get me to cash flow, which is another vehicle, right? To get me to the end game. And that's where I get to give it all away.
Beautiful. So beautiful. Yes. Tools. The minute that you were talking about tools, I just thought about all the tools that we've collected along the way that are not being used, right? Because the clarity wasn't there. We didn't start with why, or, just re-engineering things the wrong ways, and just recognizing like, damn it, I just needed a screwdriver.
That's right.
I just needed to be focused on the screwdriver for this one time. But it is going back to that shiny object syndrome and all the things that we feel like we need for whatever reason, and recognizing the lives that we're living for other people instead of having the clarity for ourselves.
Well, kids really help with clarity. It really helped me with clarity.
Mm-hmm.
What's that? What helped you
Kids.
with clarity? Oh, perspective, clarity, emotional attitude, all the things.
All sorts of things.
Uh-huh.
Now, real quick, what I wanted to at least have a conversation on, because we haven't necessarily talked about the real estate discipline of choice, right? So, we've dabbled in all sorts of aspects within real estate, but I'm curious, what discipline do you favor the most and why?
Yeah, I will tell you the discipline that I favor, and it's been this way at some level, right? It continues to increase, is affordable housing.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, why?
Because I know that is a major epidemic going on right now in the United States, but it was also where I started, the grassroots, right? I remember when my mom and my father got a divorce. You'll hear me change and hear the word father quite a bit, because I actually had two. I had a stepfather who chose me, right? I had a real father who brought me into this world, and he was always there. My dad, my real father was always there. So I don't want you to hear that, but I noticed, and I remember watching my mom. I was 10 years old when my parents got a divorce, not by my mom's liking. My dad just left, and there was nothing crazy going on. He just was tired. Like, he was tired. He wasn't strong enough, right? And I remember my mom going, how am I going to afford this house?
Ooh.
I remember feeling that. And I don't talk about this a lot, which is really weird that I don't talk about this a lot. And so I remember how much I enjoyed it when I got into the mobile home community, and I got to see that look on people's face that I was talking about. And I got to tell them that they were going to either own a house or they were going to have a house that was theirs. And they loved it, whether they rented it or they owned it. So affordable housing is my lane. That's where I stay. And it started off with affordable housing and single family dwellings, and then it built to duplexes, and then it built up to where I had some quadplexes, and then now we have apartments, and we're buying apartments. I think our biggest apartment now is 175 units or 170 units, right? And all of it's driven towards affordable housing, because I truly believe that everyone should have an opportunity to own.
Totally.
And so we educate, and our big plan is to create a beautiful education ecosystem for all of our tenant base, to where they can learn how to build up and cash create, right? Save some money, so that way they can put themselves into a position to actually own real estate. So it's not just driven on, hey, Ben and his family and all of his investors and buddies get to just sit there and live a life in the middle of the BVIs, right? It's bigger than that.
And I'm so moved by everything that you're saying, because again, it goes back to purpose. And it goes back to what we've talked about, just dedicating our lives to service in so many ways. And this just goes back to, again, your purpose. And I think it just speaks it speaks volumes for the person of who you are. And again, being so committed to your vision. Because again, what we tend to see in our industry of being on YouTube or Instagram or whatever it is just, the flashy, catchy, edgy things that are out there, the gimmicky things. And affordable housing isn't the sexy thing that people want to talk about, right? But if it's if it's for your purpose, then you understand the clarity, and you're just driving to a much bigger purpose. And I just find that to be really phenomenal.
Yeah, it was last year, February. Or was it this year, February, when I went to Tennessee?
Yeah, this year. It
was this year, February, when I went to Tennessee for affordable housing seminar and understanding real estate. A group of guys, maybe about 100 guys. And it was then where I got an understanding that affordable housing is more than just putting someone in a home. You're able to put people that have been displaced through maybe widowed or single mothers, or
natural disasters,
people battling some type of drug addiction. It affects so many different people, and people going through different experiences that I didn't know until going to Tennessee and seeing that for myself.
There was a study done, and this is 15, 20 years ago, and I read this in, I believe it was in the Harvard Business Journal, and it was a study done. It was 200 individuals, not 200, 200,000 individuals in this study, and it was done through Europe. It wasn't even done in the United States, but they basically went through and they said, hey, what is the greatest characteristic that you desire from another person in your life that you care about? What is the greatest characteristic that you desire? And they did this study, and it was really cool. At the end of the day, it landed on one word. It landed, and it was unanimous. Like, this one characteristic blew all the other ones away. Would you like to guess what it is?
Love.
I would have thought that too. It was kindness. Just treat me with kindness. So if we take it to people that are dealing with struggles, whether it's veterans, right, that are dealing with mental issues, whether it's the society that we're dealing with post-COVID that has all these mental struggles and concerns, or whether it's an addictive personality, or whether it's just, hey, I just had a lot of bad luck hit me all at once, right? Or whether it's just a lack of knowledge. Some people, it's just a lack of knowledge. The one thing that I know besides kindness that they need is hope. And if you come into a place that you can be proud of, and you get a chance to meet, maybe it's the community manager, you get to meet the maintenance manager, the maintenance tech, or you might get to meet the owners. I go and walk all of my properties every month. I walk them all. I don't know that I'm going to be able to do that forever, right? But I go walk all of our properties, right? I drove back late last night, and I get a chance to meet people. And when you get to look someone in the eyes and let them know you're going to keep making the place look better, right? And that you're going to give them an opportunity if there's an upgrade, if things change in their life, or if they do the right things, you're going to give them some more opportunities, and you give them hope. Holy cow. What does it do to change them? What does it do to change their ecosystem, right? That's a beautiful thing. I can't do that with a guy paying me, and I have this on our property management side. I can't do that with a guy that's paying $12,000 a month. He don't care.
No. Not at all.
He's like, bro, I got an alarm system on my house. I'm going to know there's going to be a diagram, it's going to be a profile whenever you come in, and it's going to give me your retina test, and I'm going to decide whether I want to have a conversation with you. Right?
Oh.
And it's going to be on my terms.
Well, you know what? And you're ultimately explaining the kindness and what you're showing in the world, right? Is just, it's that pebble that you drop in the water, right? And you see the ripples, just kind of permeate the water. Like, that's exactly what you're doing. And you're that pebble that's dropping into the water, and you just don't necessarily know directly or indirectly how your kindness is being spread, but it's going to continue to permeate the universe. So thank you for everything that you're doing.
Because it's contagious. It's contagious. When you're nice to somebody, that person is going to be nice to somebody else, and that person is going to be nice to somebody else. And the same way it works when we're not the nicest person. So it's good to wake up with that intention of kindness, and being that individual that somebody sees in their day, be it when you're walking a property and shaking their hands, a nice person, because it's contagious.
It is. I completely agree.
Now, one thing that I wanted to talk about, because you had sent us this really phenomenal email on legacy, and Darius and I, we've been talking about it for the past 2 days, because with everything that we're talking about, right, to put it all together, what you have shared, right, obviously you are this super accomplished individual in the real estate space, right? However, that's what you do. And recognizing that what you do is also the ability to share and spread legacy, whether you know it or not. And so what we've learned very much through you is just by being, right? Just by being the person who you are, that allows you to share what Darius was talking about, that the kindness and spreading it, and recognizing the legacy that you're putting forward. So yes, for your family, from a monetary standpoint, are you building an amazing legacy through the real estate capacities and through all of your businesses? Absolutely. And the legacies that we're also to leave by just being having an amazing character. So I'd love to know more on your thoughts of legacy building and what we do build consciously and what we build subconsciously.
Yeah. So So when I look at it really from three different perspectives. You know, we actually don't get to decide our legacy because our legacy is decided after we're gone, right?
Ooh.
But what we can is we can identify what our desired legacy is and pursue that, right?
Right.
And so I do once a quarter, I do something, I call them my DOGs, which are days of greatness. But I learned it from a multitude of different influential people in my life, but they're basically sabbaticals, right? Where I shut down and I shut myself away to hear what God wants to share with me, to hear what I can't hear because of all the noise that's in my life, right? And I just kind of shut things down and I go there. And I believe things are patterns. Like when you look at the ultimate definition of a genius, it's someone's ability or one person's ability to create or see patterns. Right? That's a genius. And so when I think about things, I try to think about them in the form of patterns. And so for me, I realized that if I wanted to create a pattern, right, I had to create a framework to work within. Mm-hmm. And so I remember praying, going, hey, what is my formula? You're like, God, what's my family's formula going to be? Because this is my desired. I know what my desired outcome is, but I'm all over the place. I'm all over the place. I would never classify myself as ADD, but I am definitely distracted easily, if not focused, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so what I realized is I needed a framework to work within. And so I started thinking about what are the most important things in life for me, right? And I really broke it down into three things. Number one is I have to be productive. We're called to be productive. Everything that I understand about how we were created and what we were created from. We were created from God wanting to be productive.
Totally.
Right? And so I got to be productive, but I want to be productive not to just work and be active, but I wanted to do it with purpose. Mm-hmm. So that was the first thing I recognized. And the second thing is I want to have fun. I want to have a good time. I'm not trying to be miserable. I've seen a lot of wealthy people, a lot of very, very accomplished people that every time you talk to them, holy cow, you don't know if they just got their leg amputated, if their wife left them, if they just put their dog down. You're like, bro, what's going on?
What's going on? Yeah. And
so I wanted to have fun. So the final thing is I knew I wanted to be wealthy, but I never defined wealth as just my monetary assets, right? I defined wealth as more than that. So I created those three layers. And then I created basically an A plus B plus C formula to each one of those layers within the framework.
Okay.
Right? That's a much longer conversation, but it's all driven on, if you looked at it as a sandwich, a bun, top and bottom, and the meat in the middle. The meat in the middle, some people like to use the word mantra. I call them my favorite F words. I'm not a cusser, but I call them my favorite F words, and I want to have fun. And that's the ultimate goal, is to have fun. Mm-hmm. I want to be productive, right? And I want to do it for the right reasons, the right way, with the right end in mind. And I do want to be wealthy. I'd be lying to myself if I don't want to live my life broke. I don't want to live my life having someone else support me. I want to steward a lot. And God says, to much given, much is required, right? And so I knew that in order for me to have things to steward, right, it was going to require a lot of me.
Right.
And so we start diving into that, and it creates a framework. And once you build out that framework and you start to understand what falls into that, you go in and you create filters. This is where I think people miss the mark. When you buy a piece of real estate, what's the first thing that you have to do unless you can pay cash for it? You have to go to a bank, right, or a lending institution. And then what do they immediately start doing? Collecting information to run you through a filter.
Yep.
And in the filter, there's only two objectives: yes or no.
No. That's it.
There's no maybe in the filter. I promise you. And so for me, filters became a major player in my life years ago, as I was like, I got to create filters, because once again, I get distracted easy. And I'm a maybe guy, right? Because I can get stuck in FOMO. I can get stuck in all the things that all of the people, all your listeners get stuck in. I promise I get stuck in all those.
We're human.
Filter so I could become the CEO of no or yes. And to be able to have clear yeses, and clear no's in life. So I started creating filters around things that matter. My investments, I have a filter, right, that I run this through. My conversations, I run it through a filter. Part of that filter is when someone makes me really mad, right? Or gets me really frustrated. The filter means the first step is shut your mouth, because you're getting ready to say some craziness.
Self-realization. That's so powerful. Some of us are still working on all of that.
All of us. It's every day. And then it gives us to the final piece of the puzzle, and that's, what do I have to be focused on every day? I created something. I'll share this with you. I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but I can send it to you so that way your people can
Sure.
do it. Everyone in our organization creates what we call a perfect priority week, right? And in here, you see there's a gold frame around that. And in the white in the middle, that's me being productive.
Okay.
All the white in the middle is me being productive. All the things that are gold are my why I do my productivity, right? This gives me clarity of focus every day.
Wow.
I love
And
that.
it gives me, because why? I'm a distracted person. I'm human, right? I'm weak-minded at times, right? I'm confused. And so if I can pre-decide all the things that matter most to me sooner, and then have protection around what I've got to be focused on every day, then all I have to do is wake up, Darius. All I have to do is wake up every day, right? And play the game, because I've already won it.
You already won it. There you go.
That's it. And if I play the game really good, I win, right? And when I win, I have a smile. And when I have a smile, right, it makes other people happy. And when other people are happy, I'm having fun.
That sounds like a beautiful filter and system that you've created.
It's a mic drop.
For real. And you know what that reminds me? I just literally heard this the other day, but it was talking about the true definition of discipline, and what I feel like what you just illustrated. And it was saying that the true definition of discipline is self-love.
Oh.
And we shy away from discipline because we don't give ourselves the self-love, because really what happens is, if we stay focused, if we stay connected, if we keep that clarity, then we ultimately get what we want. Right. But we shy away from the discipline because our refusal or our unwillingness to give ourselves the self-love that we deserve, because we get caught up in the shiny object syndrome or whatever it is, we decide elsewhere as opposed to choosing ourselves.
And we're playing an inside out game, but a lot of people approach it as an outside in game.
Yes. Yes. It's so true. I just wrote that down. Discipline, self-love, the connection that's there. What a beautiful, I mean, I've never actually heard that when I've been given definitions of discipline, but it's so true.
Yeah.
Right.
Because we always think about discipline about being like this struggle. Like, I have to put myself through this wood chipper because on the other side, I'm going to be stronger somehow. Right. But really, no, that's not it. It's about being clear with what we want and staying focused on the goals and the objectives of what we have, and walking towards that every single day, just getting closer and closer and closer to it.
I would love to give you all today, just because in a very short period of time, which is weird to me, but I still love it every time it happens. But in a very short period of time, I've become super connected to you guys for whatever reason. Like, I love our time together. I feel like I could talk to you guys for hours, and I really mean that sincerely.
Same.
But I want to give you 4 focuses that took me a long time to appreciate. 4 focuses to master the rest of your life.
Bring it on.
4 focuses. And these are things that hopefully will be in conversation for the rest of our lives around, right?
I sure hope so.
Number 1, I think people need to focus on how they lead.
Okay.
They need to be masters of leadership. And leadership starts, just like what you talked about, it starts with yourself, right? What are all great leaders? They're very disciplined. Great leaders love themselves, not from an arrogant and egotistical. Most people go, well, what's my priorities, right? What's my priorities? And they list out my wife, my faith, this. And they never, ever, I do this when I do immersions with people, right? And I bring people into my world, I'll spend 24 to 48 hours with them. And one of the first things that I ask them is, what's your number 1 priority? And I can tell you, let me rephrase. I can't tell you the last time someone actually answered it correctly? And it's yourself. Like, you got to master yourself. You got to prioritize yourself, because if you're not right, you're just screwing everybody else up.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? But becoming a master of leaders, becoming a master decision maker.
Okay.
Right? We get decision fatigue in our life. This is a true thing. And we have the capability of being really good for about the first 10 to 15,000 decisions that we make. And that takes us to just shy of lunch. Right?
It's true.
Yeah. So for me, because I'm so weak-minded, I have to predetermine my decisions every day of all the things that matter. So becoming a master decision maker, that's super important.
Okay.
I also want to be master of my longevity of life.
I like that one.
It's become a thing, right? I used to tell my wife, she would get so mad at me, and I hope we're doing okay on time and everything.
Yeah,
We're fine.
But my wife, she would get so mad at me because I would be like, I'm going hard, baby, and you got me to like 50. She's like, you can't talk like that. And then I had kids, and I was like, well, maybe I'm 55.
I'll give you 5 more.
Right? And then my kids turned out to be like, I love my kids, and they're like awesome. And I was like, maybe 60, right? and then I had all these beautiful people come into my life, and now my kids are talking. My son's married, and my daughter's going to be married in short order, and they're talking about us having grandkids. And so now I'm like, I got to be 100.
Yeah, we got to extend that.
Yeah. And so I've got to make sure, mind, body, and spirit, that I'm setting the stage for longevity. And there are some clear indicators out there, but I want to become a master of that. And then the fourth thing, and this is the most important thing, because this is why God ultimately designed us. This is why God created us. And as I got to be a master of my generosity.
Ooh, man. Yes, sir. I got all those.
And if all we did was focus on those 4 things every day, how did I progress my growth as a leader? How did I progress my growth as making better decisions, right? How did I progress my growth, right, when it comes to longevity today, right? How did I progress my growth when it comes to being generous? If that's all you did every day, I promise you, when you hit that pillow at the end of the night, it's going to be so good. And then when you reach your hands underneath and you get that cool side, right? It's going to feel good. It's
better. It's better. There's nothing better than that. Oh, man. Oh, gosh, you know what? Well, one, you've motivated me. I'm like, okay, I need to go upstairs and do some lifting as soon as we get off, because I didn't work out this morning. So thank you for that reminder, my longevity. And generosity. You know, that has been something that I have learn to appreciate. I'm going to say that I didn't appreciate it right in my younger years, because for whatever reason, the scarcity mentality was, oh, no. I got to hold on to that because I might need that later. Right. Yes. Instead of just opening, and being so abundant minded thinking. And so this is, again, just confirmation for me, because I have been distracted and toying in this, what am I going to do? And you, I think it was like in your signature on your email, you're like, give it away, give it all away or something like that. And I saw that yesterday and I was like, yep. Give it all away.
You even mentioned it on the call today.
Yeah. And it's just such a reminder. Thank you. I just needed that confirmation today. Give it all away. Give it all away and don't think twice about it.
It's a fun thing. If I get a chance to ever spend some time with you guys, at least in this format, I would love to take an entire session and talk about what giving it all away. Because when you say that, everyone that's listening to it goes, no, the heck I'm doing that. Myself included, until I realized the power behind pursuing it. Mm-hmm. Right? And I would love to do a deep dive on just that.
Yes.
We would love to have you. I mean,
what you doing tomorrow?
We've
I'll get with your sister. I got her number.
We've heard it said before, but never anyone diving into it, or even a book on generosity. How do you give everything away? And
that needs to be a master class. Sorry, right. That was the alarm to pick our daughter up. Good thing. Mom's working on that. I love it. Yeah, yes, we need a master class in generosity. Mm-hmm.
Well, And I think the beautiful thing, which is why I want to continue to share it, is because I was fortunate enough. God placed someone that was naturally generous. Like it oozes out of her, right? And so she has taught me over the last 26 years how to drive towards being more and more and more and more generous, to come up with this. Like, God gives you the right people when you're pursuing the right things.
Right.
Ooh. All right. Well, on that note, that'll be part 2 of our interview, maybe having this conversation of masterclass. Ben, is there anything else that you want to leave our audience with today?
I will just tell you what you all are doing and what you all are sharing with the world and how you're doing it as a unified couple. Don't ever stop.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Don't ever
Thank you
stop.
very much.
Thank you. I really appreciate that, Ben. All right. Well, you all heard it. Give it all away. Right? Intention, clarity. We need to get your grid so that we can share it with our peeps, because it's all about being more productive and putting our head under the pillow so we can get that cool side and feel accomplished at the end of the day. So Wealth Nation, if you got anything from this, we want to make sure that we continue to spread love, spread generosity, and spread wealth, right? All about this, what's in between your 2 ears. We'll definitely link Ben's information below if you want to connect with him and his team and see all the amazing things that he's doing out there.
And in the spirit of this conversation of generosity and even gratefulness, please add in a comment, what are you most grateful for? What is the experience that you had in your life that really drives you to wanting to accomplish the things that you want to accomplish in life, your why and your what?
Oh, I love that. Yes, please share in the comments. All right, Wealth Nation, remember to own your own lifestyle,
Or someone else will.
Bye for now.